So a very warm welcome to today's talk on eForms. My name is Jennifer Schmidt and I'm the host of today's webinar. I'm a member of Therefore and I'll be talking about Therefore eForm basics. So I cannot see or hear you, so if you cough, sneeze, or pick your nose, I will never know. But if you do have a question, please type it in the Q&A box that you see on your Zoom controls, and I will look at my questions throughout the course of this webinar and do my best to answer them to the best of my abilities. If you have a very technical or tricky question, I also have my colleague Roman here on the call. Roman is our technical trainer and is a real technical expert, and he can answer any questions that I cannot. So Roman, thank you so much for joining, and all of you, please ask questions. Let's make this fun and interactive because eForms are awesome, and I really want to make sure that you get a lot out of this webinar. So like I mentioned before, my name is Jennifer. I am a member of Therefore's digital engagement team. Together with Roman, I also create the e-learning content that you might have already seen on our website. You can reach me at jennifer.schmidt@therefore.net, or you can send it to our team email box, which is media@therefore.net. So my goal for today's webinar for eForm Basics is for you to first understand eForms, learn how to do basic eForm configuration, and also see some real-life examples. Concretely, the agenda for today's webinar is going to be talking about what are eForms, who can use eForms, how you can access eForm, how to do basic configuration, adding components, conditions, and some formatting, setting up anonymous access for anonymous users, as well as pre-filling an eForm. But of course, eForms are much more than what I can cover in a short webinar today. For those of you who have access to our extranet, please check out our e-learning courses that cover eForms in greater detail. That includes the core course, eForms 1, and then eForms 2. So those e-learning courses really offer you a lot of information about eForms, a lot more than what I can do today. But today, by just looking at this webinar, you will be able to do some basic configuration for eForms and get started all on your own. So to get started with eForms, the first thing that I'd like to show you is I have prepared a simple marketing video. And I'd like to show that to you really quick because that goes over a lot of the key information. So let me just quickly get the video set here.
This is Julia. Julia wants to collect information easily and efficiently without paper or hundreds of emails. She also wants the process to be done securely and efficiently. Of course, she also needs the information to be connected to her company's workflows so it can be processed and tracked. Therefore, eForms are the answer. Therefore, eForms make it easy to collect information electronically. eForms can be used for job applications, feedback forms, surveys, HR processes, and much more. New eForms can be designed using drag and drop. The eForm Designer includes many components to help you design the perfect form. eForms are responsive and can be used on any device by both internal and external users, meaning users from outside your company can access them too. Therefore, eForms are part of every Therefore system. eForms connect to your company workflows, give you real-time data access, are secure and encrypted. Therefore, eForms are the smart and efficient way to collect information and manage it in your Therefore system.
In that case, I'm going to go quickly through. The video was just a brief introduction, and we'll make sure that it doesn't happen again. So eForms, as you heard in the presentation, eForms are dynamic forms that enable you to collect data easily and efficiently. They're configured with a drag and drop, what you see is what you get interface, and they can be filled out by anyone with or without a Therefore user account, which is the anonymous access. They're dynamic and mobile friendly, And all the data from an eForm is sent to Therefore for safekeeping and further processing. This is really important because it means that the data that you collect in an eForm can later be used in a workflow or reporting, so you can send it then to Power BI or Microsoft reporting. So you can really do a lot with the eForm data once it's in Therefore. And that's really the unique selling point and the unique benefit is that the data isn't just in a random eForm on the web, it's actually put in your Therefore system so that you can process it and use it in a really efficient manner. Plus, all eForm submissions can be saved as a PDF to Therefore, so you really have the full control and the full traceability of that eForm right in Therefore. Very, very easy and great to use. As I mentioned a couple of times, eForms can be used for users inside the company or users outside of the company. If users are outside of the company, we call those anonymous form users, and those anonymous form users can use Therefore even if they do not have a Therefore user license. And that is the really great thing because it allows you to collect that information from anyone in the world, which is amazing. They do not need a Therefore user license. Plus, eForms are free with any version of Therefore, so regardless if you have a business edition, a Therefore Online, a small edition, you have eForms included right there with the cost of your license. So it's a really great value added benefit because eForms can be used for so much. You can use them for almost any business process, and I said you can use them for a lot of different use cases. So what are the benefits of eForms? You can streamline information input. They're easy to set up and easy to use, as you'll see very shortly. They give you secured control access, and you can customize them with CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. So for those of you who have a little bit of scripting knowledge, you can really elevate the eForms and use them in so many different ways. So they're easy to start to use, but they can be incredibly complex if you want them to be. In some, they're just so incredibly versatile, which is why they're, for me, the best feature in Therefore, in my personal opinion. Regarding security, so eForms use a lot of the security features that are common in other Therefore features as well. You have full control over which forms can be accessed by specific users, so it is its own right that you can give to users. And you can also control which forms are available to anonymous users by setting up which forms are open for anonymous access. This together means that you have full transparency and traceability over the forms, which is great. So some use cases for the eForms that you have could be almost anything. You could embed them on a website, such as an HR process maybe, or job application or queries. HR could be employee evaluation, vacation requests, or timesheets. Internal order forms like a survey, a feedback, or a waiver. And of course, the eForm data is then stored in Therefore for further safekeeping and processing with workflows or reporting. So truly, it's a very flexible and easy to use tool that is great for almost any sort of business. So what I have here, I'm going to quickly open up my a demo system that I have here. Let me just change the screen that I'm sharing here. All right, so now you should be able to see here is my screen. I'm going to make it smaller. All right, so now you should be able to see my screen here. And what you can see here is the dynamic web viewer where I have a dashboard configured. And on my dashboard here, I've actually configured links to some of the most, some forms here that I want to show you. These three forms are all very simple forms that are use very simple components that we're going to be showing today how to use and set them up. The first form that I have here is a PO form, a purchase order form. It's just asking me to re-authenticate here because I had opened it earlier. And this is a type of form that can be used to request reimbursement when you purchase something, or you could even use it as like a purchase requisition form so that you have better control over which employees are purchasing things. And of course, this form could then be tied to a workflow to get approval when you want to buy something. So as you can see here, I'm being asked to enter my name, the approver, the order date, the department. And here I'm going to now say I'm going to order some filming equipment because I'm working on some training materials where I want to have new equipment, GTX, a Canon GTX Mark III camera. That is about, I think I saw them for 780 euros about going right now. I'll need one of those, and the vendor, I'm going to buy it from Amazon. And then I can just add another here, and I'm going to get some filming lights. And those are going for about 45 euros each, and I need 2 of them. And again, the vendor here is also going to be Amazon. And as you can see here, what the form is doing is it's adding up the 780 euros for the Canon GTX camera, and then the filming lights 45 times 2 to get a total of 870 euros total. And so that's just a very simple form here, but you can imagine it has a lot of very good use cases. Now going over to another form here, which is the employee leave request. So this is another very simple form that could be used in an HR process. I'm going to enter my department, my name, and I'm going to say there's 2 different types of leave requests that I can choose from. Medical, when I choose medical, I'm being asked to upload a doctor's note for medical leave. Whereas if I select the vacation, I just enter the days of leave. So for the days of leave, for example, I'm going to enter that I want to leave in September on the 4th of this year, and then I'll return also on September 9th, and that's also 2023. And so you can see here the number of days requested is also dynamically changing depending on the dates that I enter. And this form is a great example because this would also be connected to a workflow where my manager can then either approve or reject my request for leave. So this is a really great example of how you can integrate an eForm with the workflow process and just have a really good process with a lot of transparency and a lot of clarity for everyone involved. And then finally, we also have the demo request form. Now this is a form that might be familiar to a lot of you. And the reason being is that this is actually the demo license request form that we have on our extranet. So when people from Canon want to request a demo license for Therefore, they actually use this exact form here that you can see. So we have 3 examples here of various forms that may be really useful to you and others in your business. So having looked at these sample forms, let's go back to the PowerPoint now, and I'm going to continue with the PowerPoint. I did receive 2 questions. Let me quickly watch them. And the first question, is it possible to set the index field in the eForm to expand automatically when long input is keyed in? You can change the size of the form, but I don't believe it's possible to have it expand automatically, like dynamically, as you're entering more data. So you can change the size of the text box, but I don't think it's possible to have it change as you're typing in the data. But maybe Roman, you can confirm. But that's a very advanced feature. Let's continue on in any case. So
I think that, the controls are limited with the number of the characters that can be accepted, depending on the type of the control, but there are also some additional settings where the control can be resized once you are typing something into it.
So it depends on the type of component that you're using,
Yeah, with some additional customization that would also be possible.
Yeah, but it's more of an advanced feature.
Yeah, more advanced. That's right. Yeah.
All right, so let's go back now. So for those of you who are, so this is let's go back to the eForm here and the basic webinar that we have. So to access the eForms, like you Yeah, so we saw in the demo that it's very easy to access eForms in a number of different ways. The first one is that you can access the eForm from the Navigator toolbar here. When you open up your Therefore Navigator, you'll see a list of all the eForms. They are the little blue icon with the yellow star. You can also access your eForms from the dynamic web viewer, as you saw me do in the demo. Just now, there's the eForm icon, so that's really easy. And then also from the solution designer, you can right-click on New eForm and create a new eForm from there, or you can open up an eForm from the list that you see here on the right-hand side, and that will open up the eForm directly. So when you open up the eForm, regardless of how you access that eForm component, the eForm designer will open, and then you will see a list of all eForms that are already on your system if any eForms exist. You can then either click directly on the title of the eForm to open it in test mode, or you can click on the white space around the eForm to open it in edit mode. If you want to actually create an eForm from scratch or edit an eForm, you need to open it up in edit mode, which would mean clicking right here on the white space. Then it's time to create the eForm directly. And that eForm can be created extremely easily using simple drag and drop. So it's extremely easy to create a simple eForm because you really just need to drag the components onto the page. I did prepare a video tutorial showing a simple configuration of an eForm. Let's give it a try. So let me quickly stop my share and then restart it. I think that might have been the issue that I had before. Okay, sorry, but I will restart again from the beginning. It opens up. All right, so then I'm just going to share my screen here. All right, and let's go.
I'm now going to demonstrate how you can easily create a new eForm. I already opened the eForms designer. Now I select New eForm. First, I need to select a name for my eForm. I'll write in Webinar Feedback Form. I can now choose the form type from either Form or Wizard. The Wizard form is used for lengthy, complex forms with multiple pages. Here on the left, you can see various components. You can add any of them using drag and drop. The first component I'll add will be a text field, which is probably one of the most frequently used components. It allows users to enter any alphanumeric information without restrictions. Other components, like an email, ensure the data has a certain format. Under Label, enter the question for the component. I'll write, "What is your name?" Then select the label position. I'll choose left aligned and left for the answer. You can change the label width and margin as well. Next, I'll add a date and time component and ask users to enter the date of their webinar. I can change the format from year, month, day, hours, minutes to day, month, year. Now I'll quickly change the label position to match. Next, I'll demonstrate 2 easy ways that you can add choices for users. First, I'll add a select box. These allow users to check one or many boxes with various options. Simple, add the label, and under the word label, enter the choices users should have. I entered a scale ranging from very poor to very good. Hopefully I'll get some good feedback. Take note that the label column and the value column are slightly different. If you want to use JavaScript or CSS to further customize the eForm, you must use the content from the value column. Now under Tooltip, you can optionally add a tooltip. This will appear to users if they hover their mouse over the question. To demonstrate, I'll add a tooltip explaining how users should answer this question. Now that the component has been added, let's add a select component. This is a drop-down menu where users can only select one of many choices. As before, I'll enter the label, then go to the Data tab to enter the possible answers. Now, the Select component actually gives you various options where the data is sourced from. In this tutorial, we'll use values, which is the simplest option, but our e-learning covers how you can use the other sources as well. For values, I simply enter the options for the data, select Add Another for the next selection. Now I'll scroll down to the Layout section and add a panel component. Panel components are layout features that allow components to be grouped. Plus, panels can be easily customized with CSS and are therefore one of the most versatile components in the eForm designer. Next, add a title and select Save. The panel is at the top, and we can now drag and drop the remaining components within it. I'll move the first question, "What is your name?" to the bottom of the form. Now I'm going to add an image. Images can be added a number of ways, but in this demonstration, I will upload an image to the form. To do so, I select the File component, which allows files to be uploaded to the eForm. I want to hide the label, then scroll down and select Disabled. This is to disable the upload function. You only want to display the image and not let users upload their own file. Then, under the File tab, select Base64 as the storage type and check Display as Images. Under Data, upload an image file you want to display on the eForm and select Save. Now your eForm has an image. Finally, I'd like to show you how to use a conditional component. These are questions that appear only if a certain condition has been met. In this simple example, I'll ask a question about webinar attendance. My first question will be, have you attended a webinar previously? And if the answer is yes, I'll ask how often you have attended. So to do that, I will use a Select component as seen previously. The possible answers are yes and no, but take note that the value column shows yes in all lowercase. Now I'll add a second conditional question, which appears only when the previous answer was yes. To do so, add another Select component and add the possible answers. Under the Conditional tab, we will add a condition. The default behavior is always that all questions will be displayed unless you add a simple condition, like I will show you how to do now. Select this component should display true when the form component called "Have you attended webinars before?" has the value yes. You manually need to enter the value yes in all lowercase, as was shown in the Values tab of the previous question. Now my form is finished and I can test it.
All right, cool. That was the very brief tutorial that I had prepared. So I hope that was really useful to you. So it gave you a good impression that configuring eForms is actually really easy. It's not something that requires a whole bunch of technical knowledge. And it's something that can be learned really quickly. So I hope that really gives you all a really good sense of, that you can also configure eForm regardless of if you're a developer or if you have technical background or not. eForm design is really for everyone. So in the video, I showed you how to use the eForm designer, but there's actually a secondary part to the configuration as well. So the first part is to design the eForm in the eForm designer and fill out test data. That's what you saw in the demo. The second part is then to create a category in Therefore. And the category is going to be the place where that eForm data is then stored. When you're creating your category, make sure that your category fields have similar names to the eForm fields. This is because in the third step, you will then have to configure processing, which means you will then have to map the content from the eForm to the fields in the category. And to do that, you're really going to have to match which fields are going to go where. Not every single eForm field has to be mapped to a separate category field because the entire PDF of the entire eForm will be saved in Therefore as well. But for the fields that you want to use for workflow or for processing or for finding the information later in Therefore, have those mapped separately. To go into more detail about what it means to do configure processing, first you're going to test the eForm by filling out the test eForm data here. The second is then to open the Solution Designer, find the eForm in the list, right-click and select Configure Processing, and then it's going to open up an indexing profile. On the left here, you have the category fields, which are the index fields in the category, and then on the right, under Assignments, you will see JSON data here, which is the data from the eForm, and then you will see the names of the fields in the eForm, and then you're just going to match them together. So name would go to name of post, date of webinar will go to date of webinar, etc., etc. And that's why I say it's really helpful if the eForm fields have the same names as the category fields, because it just makes this matching process a lot easier if the names are very similar or identical. Now, moving on to something that's slightly more technical, and that is the anonymous access for eForms. So anonymous access, as I mentioned before, allows users who do not have a Therefore account to access Therefore. This is a little bit laborious to set up the first time, but you only need to set up this one time and then it will continue working indefinitely. So the first step is to create a new user in the Therefore Solution Designer specifically for accessing Therefore anonymously. We recommend giving this user an intuitive name like anonymous users. So you go to your Solution Designer, right-click under Users and select New Users and create the new user as usual. Then that new user has to have rights to the Therefore system at the root node, and then write permissions on the categories where the eForm data will be saved. So this means you can either create a separate folder and just put the eForms that the anonymous user should have access to in that folder, or you have to manually go and give that eForms user access on an individual basis. But either way, that is the security. Then you have to open up the Therefore Web Navigator in the Classic Client, select Settings, and then under the Settings, go to the anonymous form user under anonymous login, enter the username and password, and then select Configure. And then you have configured the anonymous forms user. Finally, every time that you send out the eForm for an anonymous use case, you will then have to add the suffix allow anonymous equals 1 to the base URL. So the base URL for Therefore Online is https://tenantname.thereforeonline.com/eforms/#/embed form number, and then if you want it to be for anonymous users, you enter $allow anonymous equals 1. If you do not add that suffix for allow anonymous equals 1, then it will be not an anonymous form, then the users will have to authenticate in order to access that form. So I have here two examples for anonymous forms. The first one is on our Training 1 tenant on Therefore Online, and the form number is 24. And then the second one is on our extranet tenant, and that is the form number 10. Both of those are made available to anonymous users. So I can show you these forms right here. And it's opening up. So it's opening up here. I have the webinar feedback form, which you saw me configure in the demo video. And I have also added a special suffix here to pre-populate the name of the eForm, which I will demonstrate to you in just a little bit. Now the other one, the extranet form, this is actually a form that might be familiar to you again, because this is actually the very same extranet form that we use for extranet access. So if you go to our extranet.therefore.net, and you want to register for an account, it will open up a tab here, and you can see it's actually this very eForm. So we ourselves at Therefore are using eForms in all kinds of business processes, and we're extremely happy with them, and they really help us have a very smooth and very good process. Yeah, so that's our just a few more examples of using eForms anonymously. Now, in the example that I showed you, I actually had populated one of the fields in the eForm, and that was done using HTML parameters. The way that you'd use HTML parameters is you can go under the API tab of a component and see the property name, and then you just have to enter an equal sign for what that property name should be. So in this fictional example here, I have allowed anonymous equals 1. Then I said, and the text field 2, which is the property name of this field here, is Jennifer Schmidt. Percentage 20 is used to create a space. Another example would be here on the training 1 form that I showed you. I have enabled anonymous access, and the name of the webinar, which is the API name of that text field, is eForms. And that was what I had just showed you. So by pre-populating a field in the eForm, you can save people time because you can tell them exactly what should be entered in that field. You can also use this feature in conjunction with workflow. So you could use a workflow macro to dynamically populate depending on what information was entered throughout the workflow. So it's extremely powerful. Using this feature is something that a lot of our customers are doing. We have a whole webinar with David Popey from Datatron. They use it for a customer, NHS in the UK, to use it for maternity leave as for a compliance workflow. So it's extremely interesting, and the possibilities really are endless. Finally, another very frequently requested feature that we have are to save draft submissions from an eForm. Oftentimes an eForm will be very lengthy and complex, and users will not be able to complete the eForm in a single setting. And in that case, you would want to add the ability to save a draft so that the users can continue working on that eForm at a later point in time. To do so, simply add a button component to the eForm using drag and drop. Then under Display, enter Save Draft, and under the action also select Save Draft. You can change the color of the Save Draft button under the theme. There's various options. You can change it to like a green color with info, and then it will look like this in the end. And that will allow users to go back and access that eForm at a later time. If the users are authenticated users, they have a Therefore account, they will then be able to see those drafts in their eForm designer. If it's an anonymous user, the anonymous user will then be asked to email that link to themselves so that they can access it themselves later. So they will have to copy or email that link to themselves to access the eForm at a later point in time. Yeah, so for those of you who are interested in testing out eForms yourself, I have prepared an eForm here for the webinar feedback. You can hold up your phone and scan this QR code, and you can see here that the QR code is linking to the anonymous feedback form where I have pre-populated eForms under name of webinar. So hold up your phone and just using that regular QR code scanner, it should open up that link to the eForm. But of course, a lot more is possible than what I was able to cover today, because it's a lot is just possible with eForms. So if you do have more interest in learning about eForms and covering how many possibilities there are, check out our e-learning. We have eForms 1 and 2 coming up as well. Now I do have some questions, so let me see what questions we are. So the first question is regarding eForms with an audit trail. Using an eForm in an audited process would need an audit trail. How does the trace look like of who edited what and when? So if you really want to have a complete audit trail, what you would need to do is you would need to have the eForm saved to Therefore, and then that you would have the audit trail in the Therefore designer. Then what you could do is you could then pre-fill the eForm again using macros of the content that was previously edited from the category. And then every time that the user takes the eForm, they're saving it back to Therefore, and you'd have the audit trail in the Therefore category. So the eForms designer is not giving you the audit trail that you would need. You would really have to save that eForm in the Therefore system before changing anything from there. Does that make sense to you? So yes, you have the audit trail, but it's going to be via the category, via having that data saved to the Therefore category as opposed in the eForm designer. In the vendor registration form, it's not possible to create multiple users, and therefore because it's a public user, that's correct. So you only have one anonymous user. So how can we achieve this for a public general user to access the form to fill in details? You can have, so the one anonymous user that you have is not going to be individually, is not going to be blocking others from using it. So you only create one anonymous forms user that would be used for everyone from outside the company who wants to access that form. Can we include eForms in a specific web page? The answer is yes. You can embed it on a website, so that's no problem at all. And you can also, then we have another question in anonymous access. Is it possible to hide the ID in the link? So that's a very good question because it is a security issue. And for that reason, we're actually introducing a huge update to eForms anonymous access with Therefore version 30, which is coming out next month in October. So starting next month, the way that anonymous forms are going to be created and accessed is going to slightly change. So that issue will then be resolved. Saverio, very good question. And Rahul said you got it.
And I also responded to several questions, while you were talking. So just
perfect.
No, yeah.
Oh, we got a lot of questions. That's great. So I don't see any done. This one's also done. Cool. I don't see any more questions. And anybody have any? Can we adjust the text box alignment? Yes. So you can, in the designer, you can change it. It can either be below or on the same line. It can be right aligned or left aligned. So you can change the text box alignment. Is it possible to encrypt the eForm URL info? So besides the anonymous access, which is coming in the next version, it's not possible to encrypt it. So if you do want to share your eForm, you are going to have a very visible eForm like this. I think it is on the roadmap to add more encryption, but as of right now, anytime that you want to create an eForm link, it's going to be using this very predictable pattern that you can see here. Another question, can we include a stamp or a digital signature in the eForm? So there is a component where you can add a signature to the eForm, but it's not a digital signature like DocuSign, so it doesn't have the same legal value, if that makes sense. So if I go to, I'm going to have to log back in. This is the training 1 tenant. There is a component called signature, and you can add that signature onto, you can add that signature then onto the eForm designer. So if I go here to my eForms, and let's just design this eForm here. There is the signature component that you can add, and then people can sign using either their mouse or their finger. I hope that answers. Okay, cool. Right, well, that hopefully is very helpful to you. Thank you for all of the great questions. I really appreciate it. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time to spend the day with me to learn more about eForms. If any of you are interested in more advanced eForm topics or other eForm topics specifically, please let me know, because eForms really are incredibly interesting. And it's a great pleasure of mine to spend the morning with you. So have a wonderful day. Thank you again. And we'll see each other in the next one. Bye-bye.